And I was told by the amnio doctor that Sophia wouldn't live beyond 3. So like, think about weighing that. And so for us at Global, and me personally, right, it's like where we draw the line is we are fiercely anti-eugenics.
You know those overachievers in high school that make you look really bad? They don't get better when they get older. They turn into Michelle Sie Whitten, who just makes you look bad in life. Oh, how are you? It's good to see you again.
Oh my gosh, I didn't go to high school with you. I'm not that old.
All right, so this is the difference. Both you and
Yes.
I had a child with Down syndrome.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Not together.
Not
but
together.
Yes.
Although,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
interested, we could talk later. So when Chance came along in my life, I reacted like any good man would. I had a deep depression, freaked out, became a bad husband and father. I had a hard time dealing with the reality of the situation. It took me a long time to come to grips with reality. I finally dug myself out of it and became
Super dad.
Became super dad, and it's been the best thing in my life. You, however, said, what should I do? I think for Sophia, I should become super mom right away. Oh, and by the way, maybe I ought to go save the other millions and millions of people with Down syndrome. So you created the Sie Center, and you created the Global Down Syndrome Foundation, and you have this gala, and you make all the rest of us look bad. And you save all these children with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So thank you for making me look like a terrible man.
Oh my gosh, no, you look like a great man, and it takes a village, and it's me and like hundreds of other people working on this every day.
Really, what you have done has just been so amazing. And because, I mean, I've been going through this process, and I've seen as you've built this thing out of, well, nothing. And now it's this huge, amazing organization that really does span the globe. And so for me watching this and seeing my son Chance when I go to Children's Hospital, and I remember, God, I was such a mess. I was such a wreck. So he's about a month old, and we go to the old Children's Hospital, which for me was just a torture chamber. It's where I lost my first child. And we go in for heart surgery, as many kids who have Down syndrome do. And he was like 6 weeks old, maybe 3 weeks old, I forget, because it's all just a horrific blur. And the place was just awful and dingy and just clutter.
It's beautiful now.
Now it's on the Anschutz Center, which is gorgeous. The building is gorgeous. Inside, it's the Sie Center. And he goes in, and he's part of the machinery you've created to help all these people with Down syndrome. And so we're part of this, and I'm grateful. Chance is grateful. And so I'm glad you had your stuff together when I didn't. So I just want to thank you.
I went through a little arc. I just went through it really quickly. And, same cycle, just very quickly. And then, timing wise, my parents were retiring from the cable TV industry. So it was just like a perfect storm for me and my family. And, fortunately for the great partners at the Anschutz Medical Campus, Children's Hospital Colorado, and the University of Colorado Boulder.
And pardon me for just taking off on for a second, but I reacted poorly. And I
a lot of
made
people
up for
do.
it.
I mean,
but if not for you, not for your parents, if not for the Anschutz, if not for all these other folks, people who are going through it now, I don't think would have the resources. And I kind of think about it now, and we go to this beautiful children's hospital on the Anschutz campus. We go to the Sie Center. We go to all these places, and it's like, I'm so grateful other people thought about this and have gone through this, so I don't have to lose another child.
Oh my gosh. And I just did it. I just touched my, okay. Sorry, microphone. But but that's what we want to avoid. I mean, we want to save life, improve life, elongate life, right? And especially those medical outcomes, because I think what's happened is in the 1980s, the lifespan for our children was about 28 years old. And then when Sophia was born, she's 19, just a year older than your son Chance, it was about 50. Today it's about 60, although we have to work on African American Blacks with Down syndrome where their lifespan seems to be much truncated in 36. So we're moving the needle, right? We're moving the needle forward. And it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of people investing in us. And we have to keep it up. Like it doesn't stop. We have to keep it up until we get to the point where lifespan is equal or more than a typical person, right? So why should I be satisfied with 60? Why shouldn't Sophia's lifespan simply be what it is for any American? And then, unfortunately, again, so much good in the lives of our children, and not just global, but a lot of other organizations, including local Down syndrome organizations that are doing a great job. But wow, that last 20 years of life between 40 and 60, for a lot of our adults, it's riddled with medical issues that heretofore we don't know the prevalence of. We don't know if the treatment's the same as with typical people. And what we're finding is it's not in some cases. And we're bringing to bear the different kinds of treatments that actually work for our adults versus what you might do for a typical person, which might make it worse. So this is the exciting part of what we do. We can see a tangible difference.
Right. I want to get into all that.
Yeah.
Let me take it in this order.
Yeah.
For those people who are just starting off on this journey.
Sure.
I mean, I look at my life with Chance, and
Yes.
he's the party. He's the fraternity brother I never had, and he infuses my life with purpose. And while his life expectancy is growing, mine is shrinking because he's going to break me. I mean, he's just going to jump on me one day, and it'll be a quick death, but it's going to be great.
Okay.
He's just a
Death
party.
by chance.
Death by chance. I mean, he's going to snap a vertebrae, and it's going to be over. It'll be terrific. But for those people who are now getting the diagnosis,
Yeah.
You go to Iceland or Greenland, and they go,
Denmark.
the problem's done.
Yeah.
We have solved Down syndrome. It is not an issue in these nations. They have solved it. It is, unlike what you're trying to do, it is done.
Yeah.
Because it's 100% aborted. And so it's done. They say, well, we're a small country.
Yeah.
And therefore we're a small.
Is that what they say? We're a small little
tiny
country.
We can't afford to take care of people with Down syndrome. So we're just it's done. And so
So how is it in the U.S.? So for us, first of all, we had to battle some of that attitude in the scientific community. Earlier, better detection will solve the problem, right? But it's really important for us as the Global Down Syndrome Foundation that we're not pro-life, we're not pro-choice, we're pro-information.
And you're not there preaching. You're not there preaching.
Yeah, but it's very important.
You're not a pro-life organization. You're not there to say.
We are, we have this big tent, and it's beautiful because when we go to D.C., we see Democrats and Republicans getting along and being civil and really helping us and helping so many people with different conditions, not just Down syndrome. So we get to work with the labor HHS people, and we have people like Congresswoman DeLauro and Congressman Cole, and really being respectful. Really, they have differences, but they get together. So we see a different DC than I think a lot of people do, and I feel like we're lucky. We have the wonderful Chair of Energy Commerce, Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers, who has a son Cole, our ambassador, with Down syndrome. Her and Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro often talk about how they wouldn't be friends if it wasn't for people with Down syndrome that brought them together, right? So this is what we're here for. People with Down syndrome unite people. And so in DC, it's been a really wonderful journey where we were able to present to the Labor HHS Sub-Appropriations Committee the fact that we were the least funded genetic condition by the National Institutes of Health. We had a hearing. Frank Stevens, this is all great history, testified for 5 minutes, first and only standing ovation, 1 million views that night, 200 plus million views today, right? So we're talking major transformative. And then we moved from then what was 37 million, and to give you context, autism was at 200 plus million in that same year, to that very next year, because of that testimony, because we created a inclusive program for people with Down syndrome through all the NIH institutes, today we're at 130 million. Big difference, big difference. And when Sophia was born, it was around 14 million.
Wow.
Right? So like, look at what's happening because of Global's advocacy, which has congressional champions. Now we have NIH champions, right? And then the grassroots are families and our self-advocates.
I guess the point for me being that you get the diagnosis
Yeah.
sooner.
Yes.
Get it in
Yeah.
utero. And you know, for me, you know, we weren't too sure what it was. It was like, oh, life is over. This is terrible. It's like, all right, wait a minute. There's more information.
Yes.
You know, and whichever way you want to decide, fine. But there's more information.
Yes.
It's a different world out there. There are
Yes.
different information.
Yeah.
It's not what I thought it was going to be by a long shot.
Right. Well, I was told that my daughter would die. I found out in utero.
Right.
Right. I found out when I was pregnant that, so when I was about 19 weeks, I had an amnio. And I was told by the amnio doctor that Sophia wouldn't live beyond 3. So like, think about weighing that. And so for us at Global, and me personally, right, it's like where we draw the line is we are fiercely anti-eugenics. So, right, you may not be practicing eugenics, but these countries have a eugenic framework where they're being coercive. And if you as a strong woman are being provided inaccurate information about lifespan and then we have issues.
I was in a similar situation after
Yeah.
losing a child to a cancer that had, as it turned out, a spontaneous genetic mutation to it, and she would have died eventually. It's like, well, if I knew that in utero, would I have saved her the pain and suffering?
Yeah.
And you know, and terminated the pregnancy. And there's a parental thing of, well, as a parent, and you can save the pain and suffering. You know, if it's a moral issue, I would gladly go to hell, afterwards to save the pain and suffering. And so you're weighing these issues, but you need the information, and Global Down Syndrome does that. All right, and then going forward, you're getting more and more information, more and more science, and so
exciting.
It is exciting. So let's get to that. I would love to talk about the education, the fights during that I've had during Chance's education through public school, and the things he did get, the things he did not get during COVID. But let's jump to the science part, because that's where you guys really succeed. It blows my mind that kids with Down syndrome don't really get cancer that much.
Solid tumors, leukemia, certain leukemias, they're up, but solid tumors, extraordinarily rare.
Yeah, and so, you know, awesome.
Yeah.
But I stay up at night thinking about my son having Alzheimer's and other things like that as he gets older, because there was not a chance when he was born. It was like, I'm going to outlive another child. That weighed on me heavily.
Yeah.
And now what's weighing heavily on me is, my God, my son, who is incapable of caring for himself fully, is going to outlive me, and who's going to take care of him? And if he has early onset Alzheimer's, which seems to be a lot more prevalent, people with Down syndrome.
40s and 50s,
40s and 50s.
Age adjusted,
Yeah. What's going to happen? So why is it that people with Down syndrome seem to have a higher level of this, and by what?
Right.
By what level of that is
this is why Global came into existence, right? We were just like, oh, when it comes to education, post-secondary, we're in the same boat as other people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, right?
Right.
But when it comes to research and medical care, we had been starved. 3 copies of chromosome 21 instead of 2, which is what Down syndrome is, creates a radically different disease spectrum, where we're way up in all sorts of life-threatening diseases like Alzheimer's, autoimmunity, and certain leukemias, and we're way down in terms of solid tumor, certain kinds of stroke, and certain types of heart attack. So why shouldn't we be studying them not just to improve their lives? And hey, we draw the line there. Like, that's our first priority. But gosh, if we help 60% of other Americans who die from the diseases that they're up or down in, wouldn't that be great? And that's what's working for us. And so our advocacy that created this Include project at the National Institutes of Health now is funding all sorts of Down syndrome research. We have 11 clinical trials. We had almost none before. So clinical trials just where you've advanced the research where now you can try a treatment or a therapy or a drug and see if it works in people with Down syndrome. We didn't have that. In fact, we're excluded from even Alzheimer's. Like we had a big issue that just came up. The anniversary was the 7th, where they tried to say people with Down syndrome can't be in the clinical trials for Alzheimer's research. So that was for, in Medicaid, there was Medicaid and Medicare involved there. So we fought them and then had them change that. But anyway, now we have 11. Of the 11 clinical trials, the Cernic Institute and Global have 4. 2 Alzheimer's, and the Alzheimer's is amazing. Dr. Huntington Potter, his leucine clinical trial, it's the only one for typical people. And now we're working on people with Down syndrome taking this drug too, that it has improved all 3 biomarkers of Alzheimer's and actually improved dementia. So again, small group of people, now we're expanding it with NIH grants and funding. We have the autoimmune disease, so the interferon, the discovery that we made in 2016. We can categorize Down syndrome as an immune system disorder, right? There is a class of drugs called JAK inhibitors that bring the crazy overactive immune system of people with Down syndrome to normal. So in typical people, your immune system, this certain interferon pathway, turns on when we fight infection and virus and then turns off. In people with Down syndrome, it's on 24/7 from birth to death, taxing the immune system. So why don't we get solid tumors? That could help explain it. Why do we get dementia and cognition problems? That could help explain it. Why do we have autoimmune disorders? It can help explain a lot of different things.
Chances that our kids get Alzheimer's?
Well, yeah. They say it's about 70%.
Think about that, 70%.
Yeah, no, it's
that is terrifying to me.
Huge number. And that's why these drugs are so important. So what we're fighting for is that the Alzheimer's community and the research includes people with Down syndrome. So that's a fight we still fight, battle by battle by battle, right?
70%.
Then we are actually looking at our own kind of drugs and our own clinical trials that are for both typical people and people with Down syndrome. And so that's really exciting. And then the autoimmune, the interferon with the JAK inhibitor, we are seeing dramatic improvement in psoriatic arthritis, which unfortunately is a big thing, in alopecia areata, which is a big thing, and also in the boils. The boils are really terrible. So great improvement there. So again, we're kind of block and tackling and addressing these medical issues, but we're also learning about the systems biology that can help everything.
Is it that the same medical progress that has made it so that we are really among the first generation that might outlive our children who have Down syndrome?
They'll outlive us.
That they will. That they will outlive us.
Exactly.
Because of these medical advancements, are the same reason that they will have these terrible chances of having these problems because of that.
But it's not that, because the reason that they're living longer, so what got them to 28 to 50 in a second?
Living from 28 to living to 50.
They weren't put in institutions where they literally were put in a cell and a straitjacket and just they didn't even have bathrooms. They lived tragic, abused, oh wow, women with Down syndrome are getting pregnant in the institutions. I wonder how. The mind boggles. I feel like books should be written about the travesty in the United States that happened to this population. And Willowbrook was Willowbrook was just closed down, in the early 90s. So it wasn't that long ago. So if you don't have medical care, and 50% of our kids have congenital heart, and you're not allowed to get it, you're going to die. And so I don't think there was any kind of magic pill or great, amazing research. There was just access to some basic medical and being in your own home that
open heart
elongated
surgery
life.
for a 3-week-old is pretty magnificent technology.
Yeah, and that's been around for about 20 years, right? And so,
by the way, my retirement plan, since I've I believe I've always had Alzheimer's because I can't remember anything. So my plan is that
Yeah.
Chance and I are going to share a room in the memory wing someplace, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going to be awesome. So we're going to have a
Well,
good time.
and that we're also looking at that. I mean, we're looking at mood dysregulation and Down syndrome and autism, and we're looking at executive function and depression. And there's a lot of people, oh,
Yeah.
happy kid, not so much, the adults, and how do we even treat them? So the mental health thing is something we're at the forefront of. And at the Children's Hospital Colorado, we have the only medical center that has a weekly clinic for mental health.
This has been my observation.
Yes.
And tell me if I could be so off on this one.
Yeah.
But it seems there's such a huge scale of intellectual a huge spectrum of intellectual ability among those with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So there are some who are still kind of in diapers, and there's some who are driving cars and going to college classes. I mean, it's just an amazing spectrum.
Yes.
It seems to me that those on the higher end of the spectrum seem to suffer from depression more, in that they know they seem to know that they're missing out on things. They see their friends moving on in places. I wonder sometimes if I'm really blessed, because my son seems to be kind of in that middle spot where he can take care of himself in a lot of ways. He can't read, he can't write, he has a hard time speaking sometimes. But right now he's just so happy right now.
Yeah. Well,
and that could change.
But I was going to say, that's maybe that's your super dad powers, and maybe that's who he is as a person. I think people with Down syndrome are not dissimilar to typical people. Like, there's a whole spectrum of typical people and personalities, and people who are happier or more sad, or who are more influenced by their environment.
So, girls tend to be more depressed, those who have Down syndrome. Maybe it's also because girls are smarter than boys all the time anyway. But we'll leave. I don't know. Let me talk about the socialization aspect of this.
Yeah.
For my son,
yes,
it is when he is with his peers that his intellect has grown by leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
Not when he's been with a specialist.
Inclusion.
Yes,
Real inclusion.
When he was in school with his buddies, people his own age. And it's gotten harder as he's gotten older, because he's not with his guy friends as much. He's with girls, which is great, but it's harder to be with guys, because guys are off doing guy stuff.
Yeah.
He's now graduated high school. Not really graduated, but kind of graduated.
Oh, he is graduated. Yeah.
Well, he hasn't got a certificate, but he's going through a transition.
My mom barely spoke English, and she graduated from high school. She was Italian. She came over.
Talk
my
about
dad.
He can't even read, and he's graduated. Talk about grade inflation.
Okay.
But
my mom's Italian, by the way.
That's fine.
Okay.
And I wonder about, he had the grade school experience, the middle school experience. He kind of had a bit of a high school experience. I'm so glad. I've always thought, man, I wish he had a kind of a college experience.
Yeah.
Because that's such a, I don't remember anything from classes. I remember chasing girls. I remember, hanging out with roommates. I remember some parties. I remember the social aspect of going to college.
Sure.
Like, man, this boy, any guy, this boy would love that.
Yeah.
And I think about it, and I know you've been involved in trying to help kids with Down syndrome have that. I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What are you doing with Regis with this?
Yeah, we're so excited. So we're tie. There were two Jesuit Catholic universities who tie for the first having a collegiate post-secondary program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and Regis is one of them. And it's the Global Inclusive Program at Regis. And it just started the first semester. And yes, my daughter is one of the guinea pigs going through the first class at the Global Inclusive. There are 5 kids, students, and they're not kids. They're not like kids. Don't say that. They're college students, 5 college students, and it's going great. And of course, Regis, they are the best students and kids. I do call them kids, but we already had the Dare to Play soccer camp with the men's soccer team, and I guess maybe it's the Jesuit kind of environment, but they are up for service and equality and inclusion. amazing. And the new president, Salvador Estevez, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he is fabulous. He's all bought in. And we have this wonderful provost that was tapped from DU, who holds lots of grants in terms of, so she was a department chair at DU of education. So one of those rare people who have a special ed background, but general ed as well. And she helped craft this whole program, and then she brought over Janine Coleman, who's running it. So we have some of the best minds and implementers doing the program, and Creighton, Loyola Marymount, and one other one, Gonzaga. They're looking. So it could be the first scalable thing we do, where we can get a lot of other Catholic schools to join us. And then can we do what like Dr. Joaquin Espinosa did?
Do you think it has to be a Catholic thing, or do you think it could happen in state schools?
I think, oh yeah, no, I think our idea is start with the Jesuit Catholic schools, there are 28 of them, and see how many we can get. And can we do what Dr. Espinosa did on the science side? He created, with an NIH grant, a data coordinating center. So then they can go into the leukemia children's bioregistry and pull out all the people with Down syndrome, see what's happening. Start doing that research, right? Can we look at what is actually working in terms of that spectrum of ability of people with IDD in terms of education?
IDD.
Oh, sorry, intellectual and developmental disabilities, right? So can we be a data hub with all the other universities, and then we can add in every university that is, has a certain number of students into that kind of data network, and start being more evidence-based in how we do programs in education for people with Down syndrome and people with other intellectual and developmental disabilities. We have 3 tiers at Regis that were really thought through. One is a certain amount of classes, which is 4. Then another is 8 classes, which is a full load. And then another tier is the 8 classes and you do the dorms. And there is one student who is very successful, and she's in the dorms. And she was going to come home on Saturdays, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. And it's just wonderful because every Friday she says to her parents, like, nope, I got some social stuff going on. I'll come home tomorrow. And she comes home on Saturday, right? So again, we're hoping Sophia could get to that place. Regis is a small school.
Right.
And it also has a kind of gated dorm community.
Yeah.
So, one of our big things is also safety.
Yeah.
Let's face it, our kids and adults are much more at risk for, unfortunately, all sorts of abuse. The numbers are mind-boggling. So, can we have it safe? And so far, I look at Sophia, she loves it. She gets sports, she gets social, she gets some independence from us, and she gets some really great learning. And then we have this wonderful grant that we just got. No, I say we. Regis University got this beautiful grant for about $350,000 to spend all on scholarship and to everything. So the next 5 students that they recruit, they're looking to underwrite mostly everything for them.
It's funny how,
and out of state too.
Yeah, it's funny how much we want our kids to have these very basic experiences.
Yes.
For instance, during spring break, my son went off for 3 nights alone to go skiing. Not alone, but without parents.
Yes.
No parents.
Yeah.
John, no. For about 2 years, I was called Father, which was the coolest thing. And then one night, I was called John.
John.
Oh, maybe Father again. And he said, okay, Father, John. But it was because he's got this community, and so it was a bunch of special needs kids.
Yes.
And so the folks who take care and bring them into these activities, and they went up to Steamboat, which he couldn't do for a long time because of his heart condition. He can't go to altitude, but finally got the okay. And and he went inner tubing and kind of went skiing, but he went off and did something that most Colorado kids could do, was just spend a night or 2 away from the old man. And it's just like, I never thought he would have this experience. Yeah. And so I don't think my son is going to go off and get a JD and become a lawyer. But for him to go...
It's okay, we have a lot of those.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing we need is another lawyer. But for him to spend some time in a dorm, and to be on a college campus,
Yeah.
but the fear you have, because I mean, I've walked down the street and I've seen homeless guys try to take them, you
Yeah.
know, and that is terrifying because
Yeah.
he will go.
Yeah.
You know, he'll just, you know, they'll
Right.
walk up, they'll take him and walk off with
Right.
him. And if you're not there to stop it, that's that.
Yeah.
They are remarkably,
Yeah.
remarkably vulnerable.
Well, and that's why I love this tiered approach that the Regis University program has used, kind of best practices, you know, in terms of teaching all people and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities as well. And so, you know, a lot more supports in tier one, less
Right.
supports, and then, and it's fine. And so the next horizon beyond the big, huge dream of being the data hub and having it evidence-based is how do then we create majors and then get more vocational? You know, I think it's important to pause and say, you know, 60% of Americans don't go to college, right? Or graduate from college. Like, a lot of people don't, right? But most of them are going to try or have jobs.
Yep.
Right? And so, you know, there is a great vocational training kind of spirit in the United States. I think there are lots of great industries that give great training, and you can learn how to be an engineer or this or that or a technician. And so how do we kind of bring that wonderful, you know, get to work spirit that the US has to our program and make it a major that has some vocational outreach, so that then we can go to the next level and see if they can
about that, 'cause
they can have jobs.
this is what's
right?
been so interesting for me. You know,
Right.
I was so worried
Yeah.
when it was time for Chance to go to school.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to be mainstreamed
Yeah.
to some part because I knew the socialization would be good for him. But I really had a hang up that he would slow down the class, that he would be an impediment to other kids learning. And this, I was like, I don't want him to slow down other kids' ability to go learn things. And no, he's going to help other kids, I heard. I said, what liberal crap. Listen, you know, don't give me that. Yeah, I'm a cynic. I don't need that crap. But the more I spent time in the schools, and the
definitely.
more I saw how kids interacted with him, listen, I don't learn too quick, okay?
Yeah.
But I really found
Is that
out.
an Italian accent? With
No, that was New York.
Okay, I was
All right,
like,
so,
okay,
you know,
all
I
right.
know my.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Hey, we'll talk later. Okay.
But really, when people were around Chance, he brought something to the table
Yes, he did.
that
He does.
that helped them, and people wanted to be with him. And he brought something else, and they brought something else, and some magic happened.
Yeah.
I was really surprised how much they learned from Chance, that he wasn't. Yeah, sometimes he was a draw. And then a lot of times he was a plus. But on average, he really helped spur things along.
Right, right.
And
as do typical students. Like, you know,
not when I was in school.
Everybody's a mixed bag, right? Where, you know,
in the workplace, I guess this is what really got me. Is now that he's in a transition program for like an hour a week or something. He goes to a hardware store in Boulder, and he goes to a restaurant.
Awesome.
And I said, what's the best part of the job? You know what the best part is? Vest, John. Vest. He wears to wear the green vest. What'd you do? He goes clean table. And the pride. Oh my God. And I'm thinking about all these people who are on the dole. They don't want to work. They're getting, you know, all these people who refuse to work. And to see the pride that beams through this man's eyes, it gives me chills.
Yeah.
And to see that the people who work around him, they go, this makes me want to work.
Sure.
You know, and it feeds, it's hard to see him working, and anybody who's having a bad day, they really have a hard time. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, my little problem is not a problem. Look at him. And everything goes, getting people like our kids from the back room where maybe before they stuffed envelopes to the front of house. That's my goal. That's what I want to see. And that's where I think what you're trying to do with this as well.
Yeah, no, we're so excited about the Regis Global Inclusive Program. but again, it's kind of baby steps, but we will move it towards then that major with vocational underpinnings. And then C, it's just like any kind of really collegiate programs. You know, you think about DSST is done locally, and taking
DSST.
the Denver School of Science and Technology, you know, really the first to have a whole class go to a 4-year college, and then, you know, really starting with overwhelming majority of students that they were first time go to college students. But yeah, these are the kinds of like those great success stories, and it's just like same kind of thing. Like, how do you put your shoulder into it and give these students the support where we are not just helping them apply to college, go to college, but then have some sort of livelihood and career that they can be proud of. And in our case, with our children and our adults, also be safe, right? You know, I think safety just is such a big issue. Frankly, you know, like you think of females in general, those statistics are really scary too.
That's why
like,
Chance carries a gun.
Yeah, you know, he should. Yeah. I think
he's not a good shot.
You know, open. You know, like I
he
think
opens carries. Yeah,
yes, of course.
Yeah.
You know, he should take it to school, to church, everywhere.
He's not a good shot, but he takes a lot of shots, so that works.
Okay.
So, all right. Most organizations do something like, we need to raise money. Let's have our annual dinner.
Yes.
All right. So you have an annual.
Guilty as charged. We do have annuals.
Yeah, you have an annual dinner. Your annual dinner is something like I have never seen before. All right. So explain this for those who have never understood it. What's so great about this is you flip the tables. You just completely flipped the tables.
Yeah.
You get some of the most beautiful people I've ever seen.
Famous.
You get the models.
Yeah.
You get the hottest models ever.
Yeah.
And you get them from right here in Denver.
Yeah. Well, actually, we get them from all over the world. We even had models from India and, gosh.
That's right. I forget.
I forget.
I saw.
Yeah.
I remember in
England,
the airport. I remember in the
London.
airport. I came in once, and there
Spain.
were. I was on an airplane, and there were several people with several people with Down syndrome.
Oh,
and I was like, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, I'm in the fashion show." I'm in the fashion show.
I'm in the fashion show.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, and so we have models with Down syndrome. That it's the hardest thing we do. That audition. We just had the audition, and it just fills up in 20 minutes, and then we have to choose from like 70 people who filled it up in 20 minutes. Wow. We have to choose 20. Yeah, but we do have a promise. If like you try out 3 times, the 4th time you get in, you know, free, so to speak. And I think, you know, the auditions are tough because it's not just that you've got spunk and pizzazz and amazing, but then of course, you know, like it can't all be female. So we have to have some guys. And then it can't all be white people. So we have to have some diversity. Then it can't all be like little kids between like 10 and 12. It has to have like
cute.
you know, we have to have adults. And so when you think about then the segments we're going after, you know, that's
why a fashion show? Tell me why a fashion show.
Oh my gosh, you know, because we're putting the paradigm on its head. Like, I'm a product of being an old lady. So when I was growing up, seriously, I wasn't an old lady before, but it just kind of happened.
When did that happen?
I know, when did it happen? And so when I was growing up, people were institutionalized. I didn't see anybody in my high school who had Down syndrome. I don't know where they put them. Terrible.
No, I did.
Terrible.
I did.
Where did they put them?
I saw people
in New Jersey. I was in New Jersey.
I went to school in Littleton. I remember going to high school, and they would come on this small bus. And you saw them kind of come in,
we didn't
and
have
they
that.
went into this windowless room.
Oh, gosh.
And at the end of the day, they came out of this windowless room into a small bus, and they disappeared.
Yeah.
They never knew their name, never knew what they did, never knew anything.
Terrible.
And they were just, there they go.
Yeah, yeah.
And there they came, and you made some jokes, and they weren't people.
So, and also, you know, a lot of times they were in some institution, they were given thrift. And back then there wasn't cool thrift, right? They were given clothes that didn't fit them, haircuts that didn't fit them. You know, also there wasn't good therapy, early intervention. So a lot of times you did have, and I think this is fine to have it, but it is something that is a challenge in terms of socialization, in terms of your tongue hanging out.
Yeah.
So the poster child of a person with Down syndrome when I grew up, was something that would have been quote unquote unattractive to the mainstay general population. So we feel that our kids and adults are gorgeous and that they can dress to the nines and have good haircuts and be models just like anybody else. And so that's why we kind of put the paradigm on its head. And then we went one step further because we wanted celebrities at the highest level to kind of be their accompaniment and walk down the runway with them, showing that they're that good, they're at that level. And so it worked. I went to a lot of events before we came up with this idea. I came up with it with my mom because, of course, she likes to dress everybody. Like if she saw me today, she'll see this and be like, "Why are you wearing that? What's your hair? Very Italian." But so this kind of turning the paradigm has really worked. And when you come to our event, it's not enough to say it's inspirational because that just sounds quaint or whatever. But it's electric, right? You're in that room and you have like spontaneous standing ovations. People are just so excited to be there. And they're very respectful, even though they're drinking, because when the people with Down syndrome talk or the other awardees, you can hear pin drop and there are 1,400 people in the room. I mean, it's an amazing event. We're very proud of it. It's called the Be Beautiful, Be Yourself Fashion Show.
Here's the thing. We've all gone to these annual dinners for great events.
Yes, great events.
For great events.
Yeah.
And they're boring and they're awful.
Oh, okay.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Some of them maybe. Yes.
Oh, this is a great event, honey. But going to the fashion show, it's just so wonderful. And I've always been so humbled to go. And it's just been terrific. And you meet the most wonderful folks.
Yes.
But the fashion show idea was inspired.
Thank you.
And you could see it not just in the models that go up there, but because you have people working the event who have Down syndrome.
Yes.
And you can see it in their eyes. Just like when I was mentioning how Chance, when he goes to work, even for an hour, you see them infused with purpose. Yeah. And it bowls you over.
And we were lucky because, Quincy Jones is a dear friend of my dad's. And so we every year have the Quincy Jones Exceptional Advocacy Award that we give to a sports or Hollywood celebrity, and we give to a person with Down syndrome. Now, sometimes the person with Down syndrome is the Hollywood celebrity because we're at that point now, which is really exciting. But that's really wonderful. And, Colin Farrell, was just at the Oscars, and, we've been tweeting out stuff. I mean, tremendous. His acceptance speech, John C. McGinley, Beverly Johnson, of course, Quincy Jones himself, Jamie Foxx, and our hearts go out to Deandra, and we're really working on that kind of, why is there a lifespan difference in Blacks and African Americans? Because unfortunately, she did die.
And she came, this was, for those who don't know, Jamie Foxx's sister, who would come every year, and she passed away recently.
And not only did she come to our event, she traveled with us to 2 or 3 conferences and spoke every year. I don't think there was an adult with Down syndrome that I was closer to. I learned so much from her. And, our core team at Global, we were kind of basket cases for certainly when it happened and for 2 years. I mean, we just couldn't even talk about it.
How old was she when she died?
36.
Why is it that African Americans with Down syndrome die earlier? Do we know?
We don't know. We don't know. I mean, there are a couple of papers that indicate that the discrepancy could be as much as 36 versus 60, but really nothing has been done to really understand.
And it's not a socioeconomic thing. If it's you're talking about Jamie Foxx's sister, it's not like she was wanting for services.
No, but I think it's again, I don't know. It's like I work hard. I feel like sometimes people give me a compliment. I'm like, if I was so smart, why do I have to work a 17-hour day? If I were smart, I'd be having somebody else paint that fence. But it just seems kind of logical to me. Like, what are the differences between African American, Blacks, and Caucasians in health in typical population, right? Heart, whatever. And then could we start to look at if that is different, and is the heart issue, is the obesity issue, is the diabetes issue, is that different in African Americans and Black people who have Down? Like, is that what's doing it? Is it environmental as well? Probably it's both, but until we have some answers,
Yeah.
And I think it would take 3 or 4 years of just, kind of not that much funding for NIH anyway, to kind of get to the bottom of it. The challenge would be, even if we had the money, how do we galvanize a community that has been pretty burnt by research and government, and kind of get them, to really want to do this and be involved. I think we have all sorts of challenges. So we have some great people who obviously are African American or Black, that we're getting together for certain kind of advisory committees to help us spearhead the work we want to do and make a difference. Like, once we know, even a little bit, we can have a plan. That's what we're good at. And then start addressing that and improving it.
Here's the uncomfortable question.
Mm-hmm.
So, young lady, at the fashion show, you used to have a lot of good Bronco players there to help do that.
Yeah.
How did the Broncos really suck?
Do they?
Yes. So,
But
how many
it hasn't
Broncos?
started. How can you see that? We got a new coach, don't we?
We always have a new coach. Von Miller is at another team. He would always show up with those the great leather jackets and everything else. So
Von Miller,
you're still going to have a lot of Bronco players come to?
We've only had 2 or 3 out of the 14 fashion shows have the Broncos, because it was a bye week. I mean, it's really hard,
to get the Bronco players
to get the Broncos.
Because Von Miller was always a great supporter.
Because when they were available, they came. But I think the problem is, if they're at a game, right, it has to be a bye week or a home game, and it has to be some other day. I'm not good at football. But anyway, so...
I don't play your sports game.
Yeah.
I don't play your sports ball.
But Brandon McManus has just been this guy for us for forever. And actually, Peyton Manning has continued to be, very supportive of our work. It's hard. I think with COVID, we kind of lost touch with some of these players. But they were wonderful. And I'm sure we'll, reconnect with them. And actually, the 49ers, like John Lynch was just our Quincy Jones Exceptional Advocacy Award winner during COVID, virtually. So, we love the 49ers, we love Broncos. There's a guy who plays for the Rams who puts us on his helmet. There are people who put us on their cleats. And I was just thinking, wow, we should get this sports advisory committee together and start showcasing. I think we can do a magazine issue of all the sports folks who have kids or relatives with Down syndrome. There are a lot of us.
One of the great things about Down syndrome, now that it's no longer institutionalized.
Yes.
Now that people, this is not a perfect analogy.
Okay.
But,
oh gosh.
Yeah, I get it.
I got to prepare myself.
No, it was interesting that when the gay movement came out of the closet, and all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, my cousin, my this, but
my brother's gay, and he's married, and he has a beautiful son from Vietnam.
It's like, oh my God, and
that he adopted.
When my parents were like, oh yeah, this person's gay and that person's gay, and we have these. It's like, Mom, you're cool with this, now that there are so many people with Down syndrome who are now being socialized, they're
included. You can see them at school, at your work.
You see them at work.
They're your colleagues and your coworkers.
And now the idea of finally integrating them into society, it becomes easier and better for us to find these answers to the ailments. Find the answers, and for people who might not know these folks, to accept them and go, oh, he has Down syndrome. That's what it is. And to come out to the fashion show. So if people want to get more information and want to be where do they go?
Oh, they go to our website, globaldownsyndrome.org. They can buy tickets, they can volunteer, they can buy tables, they can sponsor a model. The sponsorships of the models is really important to us because we fly a lot of them out. And it's really great. It's really wonderful. It's inspirational. And again, I think the celebrity lineups have been pretty wonderful. We've had Helen Hunt and Laura Linney, and we had Henry Winkler, who was amazing.
Oh, I missed that one. You had the Fonz?
Yeah, he was amazing.
He was a great guy.
Yeah.
You had the Fonz?
We had the Fonz.
I went through a pretty serious Fonzie stage back in middle school. So.
Okay, there you go. We had Laura Dern. We had a lot of Lauras. But yeah, so, and they're all great people. I mean, we've been really lucky to get celebrities.
How do you find them?
Really,
How do they?
some of them self-identify. Some of them come in through our other folks, through John C. McGinley or through Jamie Foxx or through other people. And then sports, it's usually local sports, or they have a Down syndrome connection. Wayne Gretzky is somebody that we've kind of communicated over the years because
Who played
his
Hawkeye
brother-in-law,
in,
Alan Alda, he's a distant relative, I think, of mine.
No, not that Hawkeye.
Oh,
the other
okay.
Hawkeye in
See, I'm
Marvel.
an old lady.
Yeah,
I'm going
you're
to
old lady.
MASH.
You're going MASH.
I'm
No,
going to MASH Hawkeye. Jeremy Renner. And actually, we've been sending him, supportive social media. He was so fabulous when he came and walked down the runway. He jumped up on the stage and he auctioned himself off. I mean, we don't plan this, right? He jumped up.
He took out that bow and arrow and started shooting
and then he
apples
started
off
shooting.
the guys.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was incredible.
But he auctioned off going on the red carpet of his Marvel movie. And the family who went said it was the most amazing thing. He was the most gracious person, and he was telling all the other actors and people that the real hero was their little boy.
Oh, wow.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So again, just like you said, chance kind of brings out, the best in a lot of people. Let's face it, not everybody, but but our kids really do bring out the best in most people and bring people together, right and left, right? People from very diverse backgrounds and cultures. I do think that, though, in the U.S., we have it much better. I was at the UN speaking on World Down Syndrome Day, and some of the folks representing African countries were still talking about the problem of, being kind of labeled as the devil, and that, the mother would be kicked out of the village if she didn't leave the baby on a hill and then essentially let the baby die. And then in their culture, it would be like, oh, see, the spirits took it away, but they know, obviously the baby was just like killed by a wild animal or something. So I think we have our work. I know. So, one, gosh, we want the U.S. to be the best, right? And then we also want to help other countries in creating opportunities and inclusive environments where, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and in our case, people with Down syndrome, can really succeed, live healthy, happy, productive lives.
All right, you just blew my mind on that last story. I'm going to leave it there.
Yes.
Give us that address again. People really at least need to come to this the fashion show. It's just so much fun.
And we need support. Like every year, we're kind of raising funds and also raising awareness, and both are really important. It's globaldownsyndrome.org.
And it's a big lift. I mean,
it is a big lift.
I've been putting on an event is huge, and this one I've never seen the likes of. I mean, there's just too many people doing too many things.
Yeah. It's like an annual dinner meets theater.
Meets a red carpet, meets Hollywood. It's
meets
too much.
A lot of things, yeah.
Michelle, thanks for everything you do for my son.
Yeah.
It's a personal thanks.
Thank you for everything you do for so many, right?
Oh, no. I'm
Super
a lucky
dad.
man. Super dad.
Super dad.
No, I'm just the cleanup crew. I'm the entourage.
Yeah.
He's a star.
Well, Soph, Chance, they're the reason that these things are happening, and they themselves will be, the action that leads to change, beyond us.
It's fun.
Yeah.
There's so many things. It's just fun. They're just fun people.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're easy.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
I think they're beautiful and they're brilliant.
He's trouble. He's a bad person. He's a bad person.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much. It's great.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.